Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to Swift Slots. So a short while ago I asked a question on the slot car forum about the best grinding paste to lap in slot car gears. Now, the question was all aimed at my brand new SRC Delta R S4. It's absolutely fantastic car, it's super fast and it's brand new. Everything is 100% perfect, there's nothing bent, there's nothing wrong with it. It was just a little tiny bit noisy than I would like it to be for a competition car, and I just wanted to lap the gears in. So there was no overarching paste that stood out as being better than anything else. It was just a case of whatever's pasty and whatever's grindy and whatever's to hand will do the job perfectly well. But there was a really good reply in that thread, and the guy said, why didn't you put this as a video? Now my original thought wasn't to do it as a video, it was just literally a question about grinding my S4 and making it sound nicer. But that person was right. I think there is a video here to be made, and it's absolutely aimed at the beginner. You guys that have been in the hobby for years and you know what you're doing, this isn't a video for you. This is a video for people that are just starting out and that haven't heard of how to grind in gears. So in this video, I want to show you exactly how to do it, or how I do it more specifically, and the parts that I use to do it, and direct you to places to buy those parts if you don't already have them in stock. So it's going to be a how to grind in your gears. Now, just a word of warning from the very top. You don't grind in gears if there's a problem with the car. You only grind in gears when everything's perfect on the car and you're just looking for that mesh to be super sweet and super quiet. That's all. You don't try and grind gears to get rid of a problem. You make sure that all the problems are gone, and then as a very last stage of tuning, we lap, as we say, the gears to make them really smooth and to mesh in perfectly. Because at the end of the day, a machined pinion and a cast gear don't necessarily bed in perfectly from the word go. And if you have a metal gear and a metal pinion, perhaps they're a little bit closer, but generally speaking, there's a very small mismatch of the two parts, and basically all the noise that comes from a slot car comes from the gear mesh. There's not really many other places that it can come from. It can come from wheels and tyres that aren't quite round, causing vibrations, but generally it's the gears. So to make your car super quiet, we just, what we say, lap the gears in with some grinding paste. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I do it and get you set up for those that don't know. So I'm going to get you on my bench and I'll take you through the process. Okay, so you're definitely going to want one of these little DC variable voltage speed controllers. Got off there, on 0 voltage, all the way around to full speed, and then back around to off. It's about 1.5 inches square. You got your DC voltage in and your variable voltage out. Very, very simple. And this particular one is from 2 to 15 volts, and they're all typically in that range, and they're well under £10 a unit on eBay or Amazon. Really, really simple. So you're definitely going to want that. Next, you're going to want a transformer. Now, this is my old reliable 13.8 volt Ritmax power supply. It's up to 20 amps, which is way more than we need. We're only going to need like 200 milliamps at the most, but the more amps the better, but this one is hugely overkill. And as you can see, it's 13.8 volts out, which is more than good enough for a little speed controller. This takes 2 to 15 volts, so this is perfect. So your slot car would typically run around about 13 volts, 12 to 13 volts, depending on your power supply. So 13.8 is bang on the limit for the car, no problems at all. And this will be absolutely fine. Now, this is hugely overkill for what you need, but you could use a simple model railway transformer with a variable output, same as this one here, or you could use a Scalextric transformer, same as this one here, or you could use a PP3 battery like this one, or you could even use a car battery. They're all 12 volts or there or thereabouts, and they're all capable of supplying more than enough power to do the job that we need to do. And finally, you're going to need some grinding paste. So there are lots of options here, and this is what my original question was on the forum. What particular magic goop people use to get the best results? And as I said, there are no magic goops. They're all much the same. So what we've got here is a small selection of what you could use. Now, this is Autoglym Paint Renovator. It's a very, very, very fine grit in a paste for polishing paint. These are available all around the world, all different brands, all different flavours, all different grits. All of them will work for grinding in gears. Some will be more aggressive than others. This is a particularly fine one, And then we've got this one here, G3, which is stage 1 of a 3-stage cutting compound. So this is the relatively coarse one, and that will be ideal for cutting in gears as well. We've also got this very old tub of grinding paste that I used when I restored my classic car in the early 90s, of which I still own it. Now, it's got a coarse side, which is very, very coarse, and that would be far too coarse for the gears. The grits are far too big. But you've got the fine side, which would be a lot closer to what we need. It's still reasonably coarse, but if you've got some really nasty gears that really do need bedding in, and you can't just buy a new one to replace it and get a better mesh, this stuff would start to do the process. I wouldn't finish the lapping in process with this. It's a little bit on the coarse side, but it would certainly make a good start. And then the other one, tried and true, is ordinary toothpaste. Now, it has to be the whitening toothpaste, because you do need the little bits of grit in the toothpaste. Using straight toothpaste on its own won't do anything. You're just wasting your time. So it needs to be the whitening version to get the grinds. So there's a small selection of grinding materials, and one we're going to use today is the Autoglim Paint Renovator, but that could also be T-Cut. I don't know what the terms are in America for these things, but in the UK we call it T-Cut. Maybe it's T-Cut in America, I don't know. So this is the one we're going to use today, the Autoglim. So wiring up your speed controller is very, very simple. Really simple. You've got a power in here and a power out here, and the two sides for the motor. So all we do is we feed a positive and negative supply into the positive and negative of the speed controller, just by putting in some very basic wires. So once you have your feed, positive and negative feed into your speed controller, you then need to do the output. Now, the output doesn't really matter which way you do them, because whichever way is wrong, you just turn the connections around on your slot car. Just like that. Now, this is one of my cables for my charger. It happens to have the right size pins, and it happens to have a plug on the end of it. But now you need to get the ends of the wire from the speed controller to your car. And also from my charger I have this as well. But ultimately all you really want are the crocodile clips. So you can go straight from the wire to the crocodile clips. You don't have to go through this fancy plug, but this is just what I've got from my car charger. So what we end up with is that there. Then we need to connect these two wires to our transformer. And connecting the speed controller is a very simple matter of positive to the positive and negative to the negative. And then once you've got positive to positive, negative to negative, and your croc clips are not touching each other, and everything's all plugged in and turned on, power's on, you should find, or you will find, that the speed controller is active. So with your basic setup ready to go, all we need now is a victim. Now, everybody knows that fly cars aren't necessarily the quietest or nicest, smoothest running cars from brand new. And this one is no exception. Beautiful car, brand new, but it's not the quietest. It could do with a little bit of a helping hand. So my beautiful brand new Corvette is the victim for today. So here she is, out of her box. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the body off, and we're going to put some power to the chassis, and we're going to have a listen. And there we are, one stripped down chassis. Now, if we put some power to this, you can hear that she's not the quietest in the world. So there we are, that's our starting point. So what we need to do first of all is get the car mounted to a block. Now that could be done in many different ways, but the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to thread this elastic band underneath the car, and then I'm going to thread it through a wooden block, and that will give me all the support I need during lapping these gears in. So there's one side and there's the other. So there we are. So we've got nothing touching the back wheels, which is important. and we got good access to the braid wires at the front. Here we are, all done. Right, so they're not touching that shaft either, that's fine. So what we need to do now is we need to power up these braids. Okay, so after some messing around, just getting everything sorted out where I can video it, this is what we've got. We've got the car supported on a block with an elastic band. The braids have got crotch clips on, feeding power. Got the speed controller to hand, and everything is sat there running nicely. And now when we turn the speed controller on, the car is free to run nice and easily. And that's what we need. So the next thing to do is start applying some of our grinding paste. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of this paint renovator on a little plastic tub, and I'm going to take the grinding paste from the tub and I'm going to apply it to the back gear very, very, very slowly and in very, very small amounts with a very, very slow speed on the motor. And what we're trying to achieve is a nice build-up of grinding paste in the gears where it's not being thrown off and it's not running too slowly. So once we've got a small amount of paste on the gears, we can turn the car on and start the car running, and then slowly add more and more paste to the gears, just enough to hold on the gears and not throw it everywhere. That's why we need a very slow speed on the speed controller. So let's do that. So what we're going to need to do first is get some paint renovator onto a little cap that we can then distribute the paint renovator onto the gear via a little cocktail stick. Okay, so once you've got your system set up in this manner, turn the car on and get the wheels turning. Turn the speed right the way down to a nice slow run. Pick up some of your grinding paste and put it on the gear, just the gear teeth itself. And you'll hear the speed change, and you'll see the gears holding the grease just on the teeth themselves. And there we are. So once you've loaded your gear full of paste, simply leave it running for maybe half an hour or so on the slowest setting that you can manage. And every so often come in and just top up the fluid with some fresh paste, just to keep it all nice and supple. It's very important not to allow any grinding paste in your bearing or in the pinion face in the middle of the gear if you're using an inline system like this.
One eternity later.
And there we are. I've let that run now for about an hour and a half and continuously added a little bit of cutting compound as I go, just to keep it all fresh on the gear. So after about an hour and a half of running, I think she's probably about done. So all I'll do now, I'll take this apart, clean it all up and see what we've got. So once it's all nice and clean and you've got all of the compound out, make sure that you re-oil the car when you put it back together again. And there we are. So the car is now all put back together again and all re-greased. So now it's time to see if we've actually improved it. Well, I think you'll agree that's a dramatic difference in sound, and it's running a hell of a lot freer than it was. So, I think that's a bit of a success. Now, I did have this running for about an hour and a half to get it to bed in, and I did top up that cutting compound multiple times as I went, but kept the speed right down low and just let the speed and the revolutions do all the work, rather than sort of giving it tons of fluid and lots of speed. Don't want that. You want little bits of fluid every so often, lots of slow speed, lots of run time, and just let it do its own thing gently. So there we are. That's how I grind my gears to make my slot cars a little bit smoother and a little bit more quiet. So hopefully somebody out there in slot car land finds this information useful. You can go forward and use it and make your own cars a little bit sweeter. So if you've enjoyed this content, maybe you'll subscribe. And if you hit the little bell button, that would be awesome. So until the next time, thank you very much.